I'm 85 years old, and most nights, when the house is finally quiet and the air feels still, I lie in my bed and stare into the dark like it's a ceiling I've been staring at my whole life. The same shadows, the same familiar silence, and I think about the same thing, the same regret, the same small, ordinary choice I made again and again until it quietly became my life. It isn't a scandal. It isn't a crime. It isn't some dramatic secret that would make people gasp or shake their heads. It's worse than that, in a quieter way. It's the kind of regret you can't point to on a calendar. You can't circle a date and say, there, that's when it all went wrong. Because it didn't happen all at once. It happened slowly, like rust, like water seeping into wood, like dust settling on a shelf you don't notice until it's thick. It's the regret of thinking I had more time than I did. I know how simple that sounds. Almost harmless. Almost obvious. But that's the danger of it. The biggest mistake of my life didn't arrive with sirens or shouting. It arrived with a clock that kept ticking while I kept saying, later. Later when work calms down. Later when the kids are older. Later when we have more money. Later when I'm less tired. Later when things are easier. Later when life is less life. And now it's later. Now it's so late that the people I was postponing for are gone, or distant, or changed in ways I can't reach anymore. Now it's so late that even my memories feel like they belong to another man, someone younger and stronger who didn't yet understand how little time he really had. I'm telling you this because I don't have much use for hiding anymore. I'm not telling it to be forgiven. I'm too old to beg for anything. I'm telling it because there's a particular loneliness that comes when you realize you spent your best years earning things you can't carry into the end of your life. And if I can put words to that loneliness, maybe it won't sit as heavy in someone else's chest someday. During the day, I manage fine. I make tea. I read the paper. I complain about the weather. I nod politely when neighbors ask how I'm doing. I look like any other old man moving slowly through his routines, but night is honest. At night, there's nothing left to distract you. No errands, no repairs, no small tasks to make you feel useful. You can't tidy the kitchen again just to feel busy. You can't call someone just to hear a voice because you don't want to bother them. And besides, who do you call when your regret is the person you didn't show up for? When the lights go out, the past comes in. Sometimes it comes gently, like a familiar song drifting through another room. Sometimes it comes heavy, like a door closing that you didn't know was still open, and it always comes back to the same truth. I missed my own life, not in one big, obvious way, in 1,000 small ones. I didn't understand that people don't stay still. People move away from you, sometimes loudly, sometimes quietly, and sometimes simply with time. If you aren't careful, you wake up old and realize you built a life like a house, strong, practical, dependable, but you forgot to live in it. I grew up in a world where you didn't talk about feelings. You didn't sit down and say, I'm scared, or I'm lonely, or I need you. You got up, you went to work, you did what needed doing. That was what a man was supposed to do. My father wasn't cruel. He wasn't a monster. He was just tired. He worked hard and came home worn out. By the time he sat at the table, he didn't have much softness left. When he spoke, it was about chores, money, or what needed fixing. I believe he loved us. But love in our house looked like a paycheck and a full pantry. It didn't look like hugs. It didn't look like sitting on the couch listening to a child talk about something that didn't matter. If I cried, my mother wiped my face and said, enough, be strong. Not because she was cold, because life was cold, and she didn't want it to swallow me. So I learned early that feelings were private, that you didn't burden people with them, that you carried things alone. When I grew up and got married, I carried that lesson into my own home like a heavy suitcase I never unpacked. I met my wife in my 20s. We were young. We didn't have much. A small apartment, thin walls, cheap furniture, a kitchen table that wobbled unless you folded paper under one leg. She was bright in a way I wasn't. Not loud, not flashy, just awake. She noticed things. She laughed easily. She would point out a bird on the windowsill as if it mattered. She would stop to read a sign about a lost cat and feel sad for it. I loved that about her. Or maybe I loved it the way someone loves sunlight when they've lived too long in dimness. We talked about rent, groceries, whether we could afford a used car. We made plans the way young couples do, with hope in one hand and worry in the other. When our first child was born, I remember standing in the hospital and feeling like my chest had been replaced with something too big for my body. Fear and love and disbelief all tangled together. I looked at that tiny face and thought, I will keep you safe. And I meant it. At the time, I told myself I was doing it right. I wasn't drinking. I wasn't cheating. I wasn't wasting money. I was working. I was responsible. I was a good man. That wasn't a lie. It just wasn't the whole truth. The whole truth is that I was always just out of reach. I was a father who paid for things, a husband who fixed things, the man who kept the engine running. But I wasn't always the man who sat on the floor. I wasn't always the man who looked up when my wife spoke. I wasn't always the man who asked, "How are you really?" And no one yelled at me for it. They just adjusted. My wife adjusted first. She learned to do things without me. Pack lunches, go to meetings, make decisions, carry the emotional weight alone. My kids adjusted too. They stopped running to the door, stopped asking me to come watch, stopped expecting. I thought, they're independent. I was proud. I didn't see the cost. I remember a birthday, balloons, cake. I came home late. Everyone was already celebrating. My wife said, "We saved you a piece." Not angry, just tired. I ate cake in work clothes and felt like a guest in my own house. I thought, next time. There was a school play. My son had a few lines. He practiced at the kitchen table for weeks. "Are you coming?" he asked. "I'll try." Those words followed me into old age. Something came up at work. I didn't go. When they came home, no one mentioned it. And once he understood I wasn't coming, he stopped asking. Children don't experience love as explanation. They experience it as presence. Years passed. Teenagers, late nights, chances in kitchens that I missed because I wanted to fix instead of listen. I thought I had time. Then the phone call came. Cancer. The word changed the room. We did appointments, treatments, calendars. I showed up practically, not emotionally. I still thought there would be time. Even then, one afternoon she said, "I don't think I'm going to get better." I told her not to talk like that. She smiled and said, "You always do that." She died in a hospital room. When it was over, I whispered, "Thank you." That's what I said. The house afterward was quiet in a way I'd never known. The refrigerator hummed. The night stretched. The photos on the wall looked different. I realized I had been there for the pictures, but not always for the moments. That's what keeps me awake. I postponed love. I treated presence like a luxury. Now, at 85, time is a narrow hallway. I can see the end, and everything I didn't do is louder than anything I did. I can't fix it. I can only tell the truth. Love doesn't wait. Later runs out. And when it does, all you have left is what you did when you thought you had time.